My name is Morgan. I am 32 years old, and I currently live in a high-rise in downtown Chicago. Thanksgiving dinner is supposed to be about family, gratitude, and the warmth of a shared meal. But at the Miller residence, it was always a performance, a carefully choreographed play where the curtains never closed. The table was set with military precision, the crystal glasses sparkling under the chandelier. The glazed ham was roasted to perfection, smelling of cloves and brown sugar. Everyone was smiling, teeth bright and white, but the air felt heavy, like the humidity before a tornado touches down. I knew something was going to happen. My sister, Tiffany, stood up. She looked like the quintessential golden child, glowing in a dress that cost more than my first car. She picked up a silver spoon and tapped it sharply against her crystal wine glass. Clink, clink, clink. The sound sliced through the chatter. The room went dead silent. Everyone turned to look at her, their faces masks of adoration. She beamed with a pride that bordered on arrogance. "Mom and Dad have made a decision regarding my inheritance," Tiffany announced, her voice ringing out like a church bell. "They are signing the deed over to me tonight. This house, this beautiful legacy, will be mine." She paused for effect, looking directly at me with a smirk. "Since Morgan has her career in the city, Mom and Dad decided she doesn't need the help. So, Morgan gets nothing." The room erupted. My aunts clapped their hands until their jewelry rattled. My uncle let out a low whistle of approval. My cousins looked at me, their eyes hungry for the tears. They expected me to be jealous. They expected a scene, a tantrum, the reaction of a bitter woman. They looked at me like I was a disappointed child who found coal in her stocking. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, completely calm, sipping my ice water. I looked across the table at my father. He wasn't smiling. He was looking down at his plate, pushing peas around with his fork. He was sweating through his dress shirt. He knew what I knew. The cheering died down when they noticed I wasn't reacting. The silence became heavy, awkward, and filled with a sudden, creeping dread. I spoke clearly, my voice steady and cold as steel. "Dad," I said, locking eyes with him. "Should I tell them the truth, or will you?" A fork dropped onto a china plate with a loud clatter that sounded like a gunshot. My mother froze, her wine glass halfway to her mouth. Tiffany's smile vanished instantly, replaced by confusion. They thought they had won. They thought I was the victim of their betrayal. But they were wrong. I knew a legal storm was coming, and I was the one who brought the thunder. Karma had arrived, and she was hungry. But before I tell you how the table flipped, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below. Where are you listening from? My name is Morgan. To understand why I sat so calmly at that table while my parents celebrated my exclusion, you have to understand my life. You have to understand the 32 years of silence that led up to that moment. My name is Morgan. To understand why I sat so calmly at that Thanksgiving table while my family celebrated my exclusion, you have to understand my life. You have to understand the 32 years of silence that led up to that moment. I grew up in a meticulously manicured suburb of Detroit. From the outside, we looked like a perfect American family. We had a green lawn that was the envy of the street. We had 2 late-model sedans in the driveway. My father wore a suit to his finance job, and my mother baked cookies for the PTA bake sale, always adding extra chocolate chips to make them the best. We went to church on Sundays, sitting in the 3rd pew. If you drove past our house, you would think, that is a happy family. But inside that house, there were rules. They were unspoken rules, etched into the drywall, but they were as hard as stone. Rule number 1, Tiffany is the star. Rule number 2, Morgan is the audience. Tiffany is my younger sister. She is 2 years younger than me. From the moment she was born, the spotlight shifted to her, blinding and absolute. I don't remember it happening, but I felt the cold shadow it left behind. Tiffany was loud. She was charming. She had golden blonde curls and a smile that made adults want to give her candy. I was quieter. I had straight dark hair and serious eyes that seemed to see too much. I liked to read. I liked to analyze. I didn't demand attention, so I didn't get any. My parents didn't beat me. They didn't starve me. They just didn't see me. I remember my 10th birthday vividly. It was a Tuesday. I came downstairs in the morning, excited, my heart fluttering like a bird in a cage. I had asked for a bicycle. All my friends had bicycles with tassels on the handlebars. I wanted to ride with them to the park. I walked into the kitchen, smiling, waiting for the balloons, the banner, anything. "Happy birthday, Morgan," my mom said, not looking up from the sink where she was scrubbing a pan. "We are going to Tiffany's dance recital tonight, so we will have cake quickly after dinner. Don't be late getting ready." There was no bike. There was a wrapped box on the table, the size of a shoebox. I opened it. It was a set of new school clothes, a pair of sturdy jeans, and 2 plain shirts. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I tried not to cry. I told myself I was grateful. 2 months later, it was Tiffany's birthday. She turned 8. My parents threw a party in the backyard that rivaled a small wedding. They hired a magician who pulled rabbits out of hats. They invited the whole neighborhood, even the kids Tiffany didn't like, and in the middle of the driveway, with a big red bow on it, was a brand new bicycle. It was pink. It had streamers on the handlebars that danced in the wind. Tiffany screamed with joy, a sound that pierced my heart. My dad lifted her onto the seat like she was royalty. My mom clapped and took photos, her flashbulb popping like tiny explosions. I stood by the fence, alone. I watched them. I felt a lump in my throat that felt like a stone, heavy and jagged. I didn't understand. Why was she good enough for a bike and I was only good enough for school clothes? Was I bad? Did I do something wrong? I asked my mom later that night, when the guests had gone and the confetti littered the grass. I was brave that night. "Mom," I asked, my voice trembling, "why did Tiffany get a bike and I didn't?" My mom sighed, looking annoyed, as if I had asked why the sky was blue. "Morgan, stop being jealous. Tiffany needs the exercise. She is a dancer. You like to read. You don't need a bike to read. Be practical." That was the answer for everything. Tiffany needed things. I didn't. As we got older, it got worse. In high school, I got straight A's. I studied until midnight every night, fueled by black coffee and desperation. I wanted to make them proud. I brought my report card home and put it on the fridge with a magnet. "That's nice, honey," my dad said without looking up from his Wall Street Journal. The next day, Tiffany came home. She had a C on her math test. She started crying, big crocodile tears. My parents rushed to her. They hugged her. They told her it wasn't her fault, that the teacher was too hard, that math was stupid anyway. They hired a private tutor for her the next week. It cost $60 an hour. I asked for money for a field trip to the Science Museum. It was $25. "We're a little tight right now, Morgan," my dad said, frowning at his checkbook. "Maybe next time." So, I stayed at school in the library while my class went to the museum. That night, I saw the receipt for Tiffany's new dance shoes on the counter. They cost $120. I learned the lesson. I learned that my needs were a burden and Tiffany's wants were a necessity. I stopped asking. I stopped showing them my grades. I stopped telling them about my day. I became a ghost in my own house. I cooked my own dinner because they were often out watching Tiffany perform. I washed my own clothes. I got a job at a grocery store when I was 16 so I could buy my own shoes. I built a wall around my heart, brick by brick. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was independent. But there was one person who saw me. One person who peeked over the wall I had built. My Grandma Beatrice. She was my father's mother, a woman who had served as a field nurse in the army. She had hands that were rough from scrubbing and sharp, intelligent eyes that didn't miss a thing. She didn't like nonsense. And she certainly didn't like how my parents treated me. She would come over for Sunday dinner, driving her old Buick that smelled of peppermint and gasoline. She would watch Tiffany talk about her cheerleading squad for 20 minutes, flipping her hair and giggling. My parents would hang on Tiffany's every word, nodding like bobbleheads. Then Grandma Beatrice would cut through the noise like a knife through butter. "Morgan," she would say loudly, her voice raspy from years of smoking. "How is your debate club going?" The table would go silent. My parents would look annoyed that the subject had changed from their golden girl. "It's good, Grandma," I would say quietly, surprised anyone remembered. "Show me your arguments after dinner," she would command. And I would. We would sit on the back porch, watching the fireflies, and I would read her my opening statements. She would listen carefully, nodding. She wouldn't give me fake praise. She would point out what was strong and what was weak. She treated me like a person, not a ghost. One evening when I was 17, I was crying in the garage. My parents had just told me they couldn't afford to help me with college. They said they needed to save money for Tiffany's college fund because she isn't as academic as you, Morgan. She'll need a private school with more support. I was going to have to take out huge loans. I felt crushed, like the weight of the world was suddenly on my shoulders. Grandma Beatrice found me there, sitting on a pile of old tires. She didn't hug me. She just sat on a toolbox next to me. "Stop crying," she said. "It's not fair," I sobbed. "I worked so hard." "I know it's not fair," she said. Her voice was hard but kind. "Life isn't fair, Morgan. And your parents are fools. They are betting on a horse that just wants to look pretty in the parade. They are ignoring the workhorse." I wiped my eyes. "I'm just a workhorse?" "You are strong," she said. "You have had to be. Tiffany is weak. She has never carried a heavy thing in her life. When the storm comes, she will blow away like a dandelion. But you have roots. You are digging them deep right now." She grabbed my chin with her calloused hand and made me look at her. "You are stronger than they think," she whispered. "Remember that. One day they will need you, and you will have to decide if you want to help them. They are building a house of cards, Morgan. And when the wind blows, they will look for shelter." I held on to those words like a lifeline. I packed them away in my heart. I went to college on scholarships and loans. I worked 2 jobs, one at the library and one at a coffee shop. I paid for my own books. I rarely went home. When I did visit, it was like stepping back into the shadows. Tiffany was always the center of the universe. She dropped out of college after 1 semester because she missed her friends. My parents welcomed her back like a war hero. They let her live rent-free. They bought her a new car to replace the one she crashed. I graduated with honors. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said it was too far to drive, and Tiffany had a minor cold. Grandma Beatrice came. She took a bus for 4 hours because her eyes were too bad to drive. She cheered the loudest when they called my name. That was 5 years ago. Grandma Beatrice passed away shortly after. Since then, I have built a life in Chicago. I have a good job in marketing. I have an apartment that I pay for. I have friends who listen to me. I am happy. But the family dynamic never changed. I was the backup plan. I was the one they called when they needed something technical fixed or when they needed a ride from the airport at 2 a.m. Tiffany was the princess. I thought I had made peace with it. I thought I could just keep my distance and be fine. But then the phone rang 6 months ago, and the real betrayal began. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work, staring at a spreadsheet that was starting to blur. My phone buzzed on my desk. It was my mother. My stomach tightened. My mother never called me during the day unless it was an emergency or unless she wanted something I picked up. "Hello, Morgan," she said. Her voice was high and tight, like a violin string about to snap. "You need to come home this weekend." "Why?" I asked, putting down my pen. "Is everything okay? Is Dad okay?" "Dad is fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. It's your father and me. We need your help with something. Something legal. It's very important." "What kind of legal thing?" I asked. I felt a prickle of suspicion on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. "We are refinancing the house," she said, her words tumbling out. "We are getting a better rate, but because you lived here for so long, and because your name was on some old insurance papers, the bank needs you to sign a waiver. Just a formality. Please, Morgan, we need to do this by Monday." It didn't make sense. I hadn't lived there in 7 years. My name was never on the deed. Why would they need my signature for a refinance? "Mom, that sounds strange," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I don't own the house. I don't understand the technical stuff." She snapped. "Morgan, stop being difficult. Why do you always have to question everything?" Then she softened her voice, a sudden shift that was even more unnerving. "Please, honey, Dad is really stressed about this. Just come for dinner. Sign the paper. It will take 5 minutes. We miss you. We miss having you home." Those were the magic words. The words that were supposed to make me forget 20 years of neglect. And because a small, stupid part of me still wanted their love, I agreed. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there Saturday." I drove down on Saturday morning. The drive took 3 hours. I listened to a true crime podcast to stop my mind from racing. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe they really just needed a signature. Maybe they were finally including me in family business. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Tiffany's car was there. It was a new SUV, shiny and white. I wondered how she afforded it. She worked part-time at a boutique, selling overpriced candles. I walked inside. The smell of roast chicken filled the air. It was my favorite meal. My heart softened a little. They made my favorite meal. "Morgan, you're here!" My dad came into the hallway. He hugged me. His hug felt tight, desperate. He smelled like sweat and old cologne, a scent that was both familiar and repulsive. "Hi, Dad," I said, pulling away. We sat down for dinner. The conversation was normal at first. We talked about the weather, about my job, about the traffic. Tiffany talked about her new boyfriend, Brandon. "He's a software engineer," she said, winking at me. "He makes good money. We're looking at rings." "That's nice, Tiffany," I said, trying to sound interested. After dessert, my dad cleared his throat. He stood up and went to the sideboard. He pulled out a thick folder. "Well," he said, trying to sound casual, but his voice cracked. "Since you're here, let's get this paperwork out of the way. Then we can watch a movie." He placed a stack of papers in front of me on the dining table. He also placed a pen, a heavy Mont Blanc that he only used for signing checks. "Where do I sign?" I asked. I didn't pick up the pen. "Just right here." My dad pointed to a line at the bottom of the last page. "And here, an initial here." I looked at the page. It was a wall of text, densely packed legal jargon. I turned the page back, and another. "Dad," I said, looking up, "I want to read it first." My dad laughed. It was a loud, fake laugh that echoed in the quiet room. "Morgan, it's standard boring bank stuff. You won't understand half of it. It's just to say you have no claim on the property so we can lower our interest rate." "I still want to read it," I said firmly. I started to read the first paragraph. My mother stood up and started clearing the dishes loudly. Clink, clatter. It was distracting, deliberately so. "Morgan, really?" Tiffany said, scrolling on her phone. "Just sign it. Why do you always have to be so dramatic? They made you dinner." I ignored her. I looked at the papers. I noticed something strange. There were sections that were blanked out, literal white tape over numbers. "Why is this covered?" I asked, pointing to a section about the principal amount. "Oh, that," my dad said. He was sweating now. I could see beads of sweat on his forehead, glistening under the chandelier. The printer was acting up. We filled it in on the bank's copy. "This is just the copy for you to sign." "So, I'm signing a blank check?" I asked, looking at him directly. "No!" he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Then he lowered his voice, realizing how desperate he sounded. "No, honey, it's just, look, we are family. Do you trust us?" That question, it was a trap. If I said yes, I had to sign. If I said no, I was the bad daughter. I looked at my mother. She was wiping the table, staring at me with wide, pleading eyes. She looked terrified, like a deer caught in headlights. I looked at Tiffany. She looked bored. She didn't know what was happening. She was just waiting for the movie to start. I looked at the papers again. I saw the words co-borrower and assumption of liability. I am not a lawyer, but I know what liability means. It means responsibility. It means if things go wrong, it's on me. I put the pen down. "I'm sorry, Dad," I said. "I can't sign this tonight." The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. "What?" my dad whispered, his face draining of color. "I need to have my lawyer look at it," I lied. "I have a friend in Chicago who does real estate law. I'll take a copy, send it to him on Monday, and if he says it's okay, I'll sign it then." It was a bluff. I didn't have a real estate lawyer friend. I just needed to get out of there. My dad's face turned red, a deep, angry crimson. "You don't trust your own father? After all we've done for you?" "It's not about trust," I said calmly, standing up. "It's about understanding what I'm signing. If it's just a simple refinance, my lawyer will clear it in 5 minutes." My mother started to cry. "After all we've done for you," she sobbed into her apron, "we fed you, we raised you, and you can't do one small favor?" "Mom, signing legal documents isn't a favor," I said. "It's a contract." I reached for the copy. "I'm going to take this." "No!" My dad lunged forward and grabbed the papers. These are my personal financial documents. You can't take them." He held them to his chest, breathing hard. He looked like a man protecting a bomb from exploding. "Okay," I said slowly, backing away. "If I can't read them, I can't sign them." I grabbed my purse. "I think I should leave." "If you walk out that door," my dad yelled, pointing a shaking finger at me. "Don't expect us to help you when you need it." I almost laughed. When had they ever helped me? "Goodbye, Dad." "Goodbye, Mom," I said. I walked out. My heart was pounding in my chest like a hammer against my ribs. I got in my car and locked the doors. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw them standing in the window, watching me like gargoyles. I knew then that this wasn't a refinance. I knew they were hiding something terrible, but I didn't know yet how deep the rot went. I drove back to Chicago in silence. No podcasts this time. My mind was replaying the scene over and over, the sweat on my father's face, the way my mother cried on command, like an actress in a bad soap opera, the white tape over the numbers. I didn't have a lawyer friend, but I hired one the next day. I found a man named Mr. Henderson. He wasn't cheap, but I had savings. I told him what happened. I gave him my parents' names and their address. "I want to know what is happening with that house," I told him, my voice shaking slightly, "and I want to know if my name is attached to anything." It took him 3 days. I was sitting in my cubicle at work, staring at a blinking cursor, when he called. "Morgan," Mr. Henderson said. His voice was serious, professional. "I have the report on the property." "Is it a refinance?" I asked, holding my breath. "No," he said. "It is not a refinance. It's a rescue mission." He explained it to me in simple terms. My parents were broke, completely broke. They had taken out a second mortgage on the house 5 years ago, right around the time they bought Tiffany her new car and renovated the kitchen with granite countertops. They hadn't paid that mortgage in 6 months. "They are in pre-foreclosure," Mr. Henderson said. "The bank is getting ready to take the house." My hand shook as I held the phone. "So, what was the paper they wanted me to sign?" "They were trying to transfer the title to you," he said, "but not just the title. They were trying to add you to the loan. There is a clause called assumption of debt. If you had signed that paper, you would have become legally responsible for the entire debt, about $285,000. I felt sick. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach by a heavyweight boxer. "They wanted me to pay their debt," I whispered. "They wanted to ruin me." "It looks like they wanted to use your credit score to save the house," he said gently. "Your credit is excellent. Theirs is ruined. If you had signed, the bank would have paused the foreclosure because a solvent borrower that's you was now on the hook. They would have kept living there, and you would have been the one receiving the bills." I hung up the phone. I ran to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. My own parents. They weren't just asking for help, they were trying to trap me. They were trying to chain me to their mistakes like an anchor. They were willing to ruin my financial future to save their image. And Tiffany? She just wanted a big house. She didn't care how she got it. A week later, my phone rang again. It was my mother. She sounded weak, her voice a fragile whisper. "Morgan," she said. "What do you want, Mom?" I asked. I was done being polite. I was done being the good daughter. "It's your father," she said. He's sick. He went to the doctor. They found something. It's bad." My heart stopped for a second. Even after everything, he was my dad. The man who taught me to ride a bike. Wait, no, he didn't. I taught myself. But still. "What is it?" I asked, gripping the phone. "They think it's a tumor," she cried, her voice breaking. "He needs surgery, but our insurance, it doesn't cover the specialist. We need $8,500 for the deposit. Please, Morgan. I know you're mad, but this is life or death." I felt the guilt rising like bile. Cancer, a tumor. That changed everything, didn't it? I couldn't let my dad die because I was angry about money. "Okay," I said. "I'll help. Which hospital is he at? What's the doctor's name? I will call them and pay the deposit directly with my credit card." There was a pause. A long, heavy silence on the other end. "Well," she stammered, "you can't pay them directly. It's complicated. You have to send the money to our account. We have to write a check. It's a specific policy." That didn't sound right. The cold feeling came back, sharper this time. "Give me the doctor's name," I demanded. "Why do you have to verify everything?" she screamed. Her weak voice was gone instantly, replaced by a screech of pure rage. "Why can't you just give us the money? You have a good job. You have no kids. You are selfish." "There is no tumor, is there?" I asked. My voice was flat, dead. "He is sick with stress," she yelled. "Stress that you are causing. The bank is calling every day. We are going to lose the house." "So you lied about cancer to get money for the mortgage?" "We needed the money," she sobbed. "It's the same thing. Saving the house saves your father." I hung up. I sat on my couch in my quiet apartment. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt something else. I felt clarity. They were drowning. They had spent their lives spoiling Tiffany and ignoring reality. Now the water was over their heads, and instead of learning to swim, they were trying to climb on top of me to stay afloat. They didn't care if I drowned, as long as they stayed dry. I looked at a photo of Grandma Beatrice on my shelf. She passed away 2 years ago. I missed her. "You are stronger than they think," she had said. She was right. I wasn't going to let them use me. But I wasn't going to just disappear either. They had tried to trick me. They had lied about cancer. They had treated me like a wallet with a pulse. I needed to make sure they couldn't hurt me or anyone else ever again. The next few months were a strange game of cat and mouse. I didn't block their numbers. I answered their calls, but I became very boring. When they asked for money, I said I had expenses. When they tried to guilt me, I changed the subject. "How is Tiffany?" I would ask. "Oh, she is wonderful," my mom would say, forgetting her anger in a heartbeat. "Brandon is going to propose any day now. They are looking at wedding venues. Very expensive venues." I listened. I took notes. I started watching Tiffany's social media like a hawk. She was posting constantly. Picture of a new designer bag. Number treating myself. Number blessed. Picture of my parents' house. Number so grateful to have a home filled with love. Big news coming soon. Number homeowner. Number legacy. She posted a story on Instagram. She was walking through my parents' living room, spinning around like a Disney princess. "My parents are the best," she said to the camera, her voice sugary sweet. "They are making sure Brandon and I have the best start to our life. House hunting is so stressful." So we decided, why hunt when you already have the perfect castle? I watched it 3 times. The perfect castle. They were planning to give the house to Tiffany. But how? The house was in debt. The house was about to be foreclosed on. Then I realized the plan. It was so simple and so stupid. They were going to sign the deed over to Tiffany. Tiffany would think she was getting a free house. Brandon, her fiancé, would think he was marrying into a wealthy family with property. My parents would move into a condo or maybe the in-law suite, hiding from the debt collectors, hoping that by transferring the deed, they could confuse the bank or delay the process. Or maybe they just didn't tell Tiffany about the debt. Maybe they were setting her up, too. I called Mr. Henderson again. "If they transfer the deed to my sister," I asked, "what happens to the debt?" "The mortgage stays with the property," he said. "If the parents stop paying, the bank forecloses. It doesn't matter who is on the deed. If your sister takes the title, she takes the risk of losing the home immediately unless the loan is paid off." "Does she know that?" I asked. "I can't say," he said. "But usually when people transfer deeds for $1, which is what family members do, title companies do a search. But if they do it privately, she might not know until the sheriff shows up to evict her." I thanked him. I started building my folder. I went to the county clerk's website. I downloaded the public records. Document 1, the original mortgage. Document 2, the second mortgage. Document 3, the notice of default, the first step of foreclosure. Document 4, a list of liens against the property for unpaid property taxes. I printed them all out. I put them in a crisp blue folder. It was November now. Thanksgiving was approaching. My mother texted me a week before the holiday. Thanksgiving dinner at 4 p.m. "Please come. We are having a big announcement. Try to be happy for your sister." "I'll be there," I replied. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to bring the truth. I packed my bag. I put on a nice dress, a dark navy sheath that made me look like a CEO. I did my hair. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like the scared little girl in the corner anymore. I looked like a woman who knew who she was. I drove to the house. The leaves were falling, brown and brittle. The air was crisp, smelling of wood smoke and impending rain. When I arrived, the driveway was full. My aunts and uncles were there. Brandon's parents were there. It was a full house. I walked in. The heat hit me. The noise of laughter and clinking glasses. "Morgan!" My Aunt Susan hugged me. "We never see you anymore." "I've been working," I said, smiling tightly. I looked for my parents. They were in the kitchen. My dad was opening wine. He looked thinner. He looked tired. But when he saw me, he put on his fake smile. "Glad you made it," he said. He didn't hug me. He looked at my purse as if checking to see if I had brought a checkbook. I saw Tiffany. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She looked like a bride already. She was showing her ring to everyone. Brandon was standing next to her, looking proud. He was a nice guy. He worked in IT. He had no idea he was marrying into a financial sinkhole. "Dinner is served," my mom called out. We all moved to the dining room. There were 20 people. The table was extended with extra leaves. I looked for my seat. There was a place card with my name. It was at the far end, near the kitchen door, the worst seat. Tiffany and Brandon were in the middle, right next to Mom and Dad. I sat down. I placed my purse on the floor. I placed the blue folder on my lap, under the napkin. The food was passed around. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce. Everyone was eating and laughing. Then the clinking started. Ding, ding, ding. Tiffany stood up. "Attention, everyone," she chirped. My stomach didn't tighten this time. My heart didn't race. I felt a cold calm wash over me. This was it. The moment they had planned. The moment that was supposed to crush me. But they didn't know I had the blue folder. They didn't know that the victim they invited to dinner had become the judge, the jury, and the executioner. I took a sip of my water. I waited. "Mom and Dad have made a decision," Tiffany began. I touched the folder on my lap. "Go ahead," I thought. "Say it." The drive to my parents' house usually took 3 hours, but today it felt like an eternity. The highway was gray and cold. The trees were bare. It was November in the Midwest, and everything looked like it was dying. I had the blue folder on the passenger seat next to me. I kept glancing at it. It looked so innocent. It was just a cheap plastic folder I had bought at an office supply store for $2. But inside, it held the power to destroy my family's image. It held the truth that they had been hiding for years. My stomach felt tight. I wasn't hungry, even though it was Thanksgiving. I was nervous, not because I was afraid of them anymore, but because I knew that once I opened that folder, there was no going back. I was about to burn the bridge. I was about to become the villain in their story so that I could be the hero in mine. I pulled into the driveway at exactly 3:55 p.m. Dinner was scheduled for 4 p.m. My parents were always obsessed with punctuality. To be early is to be on time. To be on time is to be late, my father used to say. It was funny considering he hadn't paid his mortgage on time in 6 months. The driveway was packed. My aunt and uncle's sedan was there. My cousin Mark's truck was parked on the grass, something my dad usually hated, but today he probably didn't care. And right in the center, taking up the best spot, was Tiffany's car. It was the SUV my parents had leased for her. It was shiny and clean. I parked my car on the street. I didn't want to block anyone in. I wanted a quick escape route. I grabbed my purse and the blue folder. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like wood smoke and impending rain. I walked up the front path. The house looked impressive from the street. It was a big 2-story colonial with white pillars. My mother had put a wreath on the door made of dried corn and autumn leaves. It looked like a picture from a magazine. That was their specialty, making things look perfect from the outside while everything rotted on the inside. I didn't knock. I used my key. I walked in. The heat hit me first. The house was stiflingly hot. Then the noise. The sound of 20 people talking, laughing, and clinking glasses filled the hallway. The smell of roasting turkey, sage stuffing, and sweet potatoes was overwhelming. It was the smell of my childhood, but today it smelled like a lie. "Morgan, you made it!" It was my Aunt Linda. She came rushing out of the living room, holding a glass of white wine. Aunt Linda was my mother's sister. She was nosy, loud, and loved drama. "Hi, Aunt Linda," I said, letting her hug me. She smelled like expensive perfume and Chardonnay. "We were worried you wouldn't come," she whispered loudly in my ear. "Your mother said, you've been very distant lately." "I've been working a lot," I said simply. "Work, work, work," she sighed, pulling back to look at me. "You look tired, honey. Are you dating anyone? You know, Tiffany and Brandon are looking at wedding venues. Maybe you can bring a date to the wedding." "I'm happy being single right now," I said. I shifted the blue folder to my other hand, hiding it against my side. "Well, don't wait too long," she warned. "Eggs don't last forever." She laughed at her own joke and wandered back into the party. I walked into the kitchen. This was the nerve center. My mother was there, wearing a frantic expression and a kiss the cook apron. She was basting the turkey one last time. My father was opening bottles of wine. Tiffany was sitting on a stool, doing absolutely nothing. She was holding a glass of wine and chatting with Brandon. Tiffany looked beautiful, I have to admit that. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her blonde hair was in perfect curls. She looked like a princess holding court. Brandon stood next to her. He was a good guy. He was tall, had kind eyes, and worked hard in IT. He adored Tiffany. He thought he was marrying into a stable, wealthy family. He had no idea he was standing on a trapdoor. "Morgan," my dad said. He didn't smile. He just nodded. "You're here." "Hello, Dad," I said. He looked at my purse. He looked at the folder. His eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. He recognized the bank logo on the corner of the paper sticking out. I saw his throat bob as he swallowed. "What's that?" he asked, pointing to the folder. "Just some work stuff," I lied. "I have to review some things later." "On Thanksgiving?" Tiffany laughed. She swirled her wine. "God, Morgan, you are such a bore. Can't you take a break for one day?" "Some of us have to work to pay for things, Tiffany," I said calmly. Okay, my mom interjected. She sensed the tension immediately. "Let's not fight. It's Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for today, especially today." She exchanged a secret, excited look with Tiffany. Tiffany giggled. "Go find a seat, Morgan," my mom said, shooing me out of the kitchen. "We are serving in 5 minutes." I walked into the dining room. The table was magnificent. My mother had pulled out all the stops. The good china with the gold rim was out. There were crystal water glasses. There were centerpieces made of fresh flowers. There were name cards at every seat, written in my mother's fancy cursive script. I walked around the table, looking for my name. Dad was at the head. Mom was at the foot. Tiffany was to Dad's right, the place of honor. Brandon was next to her. Then Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, Cousin Mark, and Brandon's parents. I found my card. It was at the very far end of the table, practically in the hallway. I was seated next to the kitchen door and across from Great Aunt Clara, who was in a wheelchair and mostly deaf. It was a subtle insult. "You are here, but you are not part of the core group." I sat down. I placed my purse on the floor. I placed the blue folder on my lap, underneath the white linen napkin. I smoothed the napkin over it. It felt solid and heavy on my legs. The room filled up. Everyone took their seats. There was the sound of chairs scraping, people laughing, the clinking of silverware. "This looks delicious, Susan," Brandon's mom shouted to my mother. "Oh, it was nothing," my mom said modestly. "Just a little family recipe." My father stood up. He tapped his knife against his wine glass. Ding, ding, ding. The sound cut through the chatter. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at him. He stood tall, puffing out his chest. He loved this. He loved being the patriarch, the provider, the generous king. "Welcome, everyone," he began. His voice was deep and theatrical. "It warms my heart to see this table full. Family is the most important thing in the world. It is our rock. It is our legacy." He paused to let that sink in. I watched him closely. I saw the sweat on his upper lip. I saw the slight tremor in his hand holding the glass. He was terrified. He was playing a role for his life. "This year has been a special year," he continued. "We have seen our beautiful Tiffany get engaged to a wonderful man, Brandon." Everyone clapped. Brandon blushed. Tiffany beamed. "And," my dad said, raising his voice over the applause, "we want to make sure that their life together starts on the right foot. We want to ensure that the Miller legacy is passed down." He looked down at Tiffany. He nodded. This was the cue. Tiffany stood up. She didn't just stand, she posed. She placed one hand on Brandon's shoulder and held her wine glass with the other. "Thank you, Daddy," she said. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. "Mom and Dad have been talking to Brandon and me for a few weeks. We have been so stressed about finding a house. You all know how the market is. It's crazy." She laughed, a little tinkling laugh. "But Mom and Dad," she continued, her eyes widening with feigned amazement, "have decided to do something incredible, something so generous I still can't believe it." She took a deep breath. She looked around the room, making eye contact with everyone. When her eyes landed on me, her smile sharpened. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was a smile of victory. "Mom and Dad are signing this house over to me," she announced. "Brandon and I are going to move in next month. This is going to be our home." For a split second, the room was quiet. It was a huge announcement. This house was worth $500,000, or at least it used to be. Then Tiffany added the knife. "And," she said, her voice getting a little louder, a little harder, "since Morgan has her big career in the city, and since she's always been so independent, Mom and Dad decided that she doesn't need the help. So the house is strictly mine. Morgan gets nothing." She said it with pride. She said it like I was being punished for being responsible. The silence broke. "Oh my God!" Cousin Mark yelled. "That's awesome, Tiffany!" "Congratulations!" Aunt Linda shrieked. "A homeowner! That is so generous, Robert," Uncle Bob said, raising his glass to my dad. "A true father takes care of his own." My mother was clapping her hands together, looking at Tiffany with tears in her eyes. "My baby," she mouthed. "My baby is going to be safe." Safe. That was the irony. I sat there. I didn't move. I didn't clap. I didn't frown. I just watched them. It was like watching a play where the actors didn't know the scenery was on fire. People started to look at me. They noticed I wasn't cheering. "Morgan," Aunt Linda said, nudging me with her elbow, "aren't you happy for your sister? Don't be sour just because you didn't get a house." "Yeah, Morgan," Cousin Mark laughed. "Don't be a sore loser." I looked at my father. He was watching me. His smile was tight. He was waiting for me to cause a scene. He was waiting for me to cry or storm out. If I stormed out, he won. If I stormed out, I was the jealous, ungrateful daughter and he was the victim. But I wasn't going to storm out. I picked up my water glass. I took a slow sip. The water was cool. It calmed me. I put the glass down. "Dad," I said. I didn't shout. I spoke in a normal conversational volume, but because the room was starting to quiet down to see my reaction, my voice carried. "Dad," I said again. He stared at me. "What, Morgan? Should I tell them?" I asked. "Or will you?" The question hung in the air. "Tell us what?" Tiffany snapped. She looked annoyed that I was interrupting her moment. "That you're jealous? We already know." I ignored her. I kept my eyes locked on my father. "Dad," I said, "should I tell them about the gift? The real gift?" My father's face went pale. The redness drained out of him like water from a sink. His hand shook so bad that a splash of wine spilled onto the white tablecloth. It looked like a drop of blood. "Morgan," he warned. His voice was a low growl. "Don't do this. Not today." "Do what?" Brandon asked. He looked between me and my father. He sensed the danger. "What is she talking about, Robert?" "Nothing!" my mom shrieked. Her voice was too high. "She's just being dramatic. Ignore her. Let's eat." "No," I said. I reached under the napkin. I pulled out the blue folder. I placed it on the table. The plastic made a slap sound against the wood. "I think we should talk about exactly what Tiffany is inheriting," I said. The sight of the blue folder changed the energy in the room instantly. It was like a loaded gun had been placed on the dinner table next to the cranberry sauce. My father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor like a scream. "That is enough," he shouted, his face turning a mottled purple. "This is my house. You will not disrespect me at my table." "Is it your house, Dad?" I asked calmly. I didn't stand up. I stayed seated, my hands folded on top of the plastic cover. It made me look more in control, more like a judge than a defendant. According to the county records, the bank actually owns about 90% of it right now, and they are coming for the rest. "Lies!" my mother screamed. She stood up too, knocking over her wine glass. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like a wound. "She is lying. She is just jealous because we love Tiffany more." The room gasped. My mother had never said it out loud before. "We love Tiffany more." She covered her mouth instantly, her eyes wide with horror, realizing what she had said. But the words were out. They floated in the air, ugly and undeniable, like a foul smell. I felt a sting in my chest, a sharp, familiar pain. But I pushed it down. I knew that already. Hearing it just confirmed I was doing the right thing. "I know you do, Mom," I said softly. "That's why it's so shocking that you are trying to destroy her." I opened the folder. I took out the first document. I held it up so everyone could see the bold black letters. "This," I said, projecting my voice to the whole table, "is a notice of default from First National Bank. It is dated October 15th. I looked at Brandon. He was staring at the paper, his mouth slightly open. "Brandon," I said, "you work with data. You know what a default notice is, right?" Brandon looked pale. He nodded slowly. It means the mortgage hasn't been paid." "Correct," I said. "For 6 months, to be exact. My parents haven't paid a single dime toward the mortgage on this house in half a year." "That's impossible," Tiffany cried. She looked at Dad, her eyes wide with panic. "Daddy, you said the house was paid off. You said you owned it free and clear." I, my father stammered. He wiped his forehead with a napkin, his hand shaking uncontrollably. "Cash flow problems. Temporary. Business has been slow. We were going to catch up." "With what money, Dad?" I asked. "The money you don't have?" I pulled out the second document. "This is the second mortgage," I announced, "taken out 5 years ago. $120,000 at an adjustable rate. Currently, the interest rate is over 9%. This loan is also in default." The guests were whispering now, a hive of shocked bees. $120,000? Foreclosure? I thought they were rich. I turned to Tiffany. She looked like she was going to throw up. She had sunk into her chair, her princess posture gone. "Tiffany," I said, my voice cutting through the whispers, "they aren't giving you a house. They are giving you a debt." I flipped the page. "I spoke to a lawyer," I continued. "If you sign that deed today, if you put your name on that title, you are accepting the asset and the liens attached to it. The bank will come after you. They will foreclose on you. You and Brandon will be evicted, and your credit score, it will be destroyed before you even cut the wedding cake." Tiffany stared at our parents. "Is this true?" Her voice shook. "Mom, did you know this?" My mother was crying now, big ugly sobs that shook her shoulders. "We were trying to save it. If we transferred it to you, the bank would have to restart the process. It would give us time. We could have lived here for another year. We would have figured it out." "You were using me as a shield," Tiffany whispered. The betrayal was dawning on her, slow and painful. "You were going to let me move in, set up a nursery, and wait for the sheriff to kick me out?" "We would never let that happen," my dad yelled. "I am a businessman. I make deals." "You are a fraud, Dad," I said. I looked at the table. 6 months ago, I told everyone. They tried to do this to me first. My Aunt Susan dropped her fork. Clatter. "They called me home," I said. "They told me it was a refinance. They tried to get me to sign a paper that would have made me a co-borrower. They wanted to attach my income and my credit to the sinking ship. They wanted me to pay their bills while they lived here for free." I looked at my mother, and when I refused, I said, my voice trembling slightly with the memory, "Mom told me Dad had a tumor. She lied about cancer to try and get $8,500 from me." The room went dead silent. That was the line. Money troubles were one thing. Lying about cancer was another. It was a moral abyss that shocked even the most cynical relative. "Susan?" Aunt Linda stood up. She looked at her sister with disgust. "You told me Robert was sick. I prayed for him. You lied?" My mother put her head on the table and wailed. She didn't deny it. "They tried to trap me," I said. "I escaped. So, they moved on to the next available victim. Tiffany." I looked at my sister. "I'm sorry I had to do this in front of everyone," I said to her. "But if I told you in private, you would have believed them. You would have thought I was just jealous. You needed to see the papers." Tiffany looked at the papers on the table. She picked up the foreclosure notice. She read the words, "Notice of sale." She looked at Brandon. Brandon was standing up. He looked furious. His face was red, his fists clenched at his sides. "You people are sick," Brandon said. He looked at my father. "I looked up to you. I thought you were a success. You're just a con artist." "Now, son, wait a minute." My dad tried to use his charming voice, but it cracked. "These are just numbers. Business is complicated." "Family isn't complicated," Brandon shouted. "You don't ruin your children to save your ego." Suddenly, a voice cut through the chaos. It was frail but sharp. "I told you, Robert." We all turned. It was Great Aunt Clara. She was sitting in her wheelchair at the end of the table. She had been silent for years at family gatherings. We all thought she was senile, but her eyes were clear, piercing through the fog of deception. She pointed a shaking finger at my father. "Beatrice told me," Clara said. "Before she died, your mother told me." She continued. "She said, Robert is spending money he doesn't have. He is building a castle on sand, and one day he will try to use those girls as sandbags to stop the water." My father looked like he had been slapped. "Beatrice knew," Clara said. "She looked at me, and she told me, 'Watch out for Morgan. She's the only one with a backbone. She's the only one who can stop him.'" Clara smiled at me. It was a gummy old lady smile, but it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "You did good, girl," Clara said. "You stopped him." The validation hit me hard. I felt tears prick my eyes. I wasn't the villain. Grandma Beatrice had seen this coming, and she had prepared me. "Get out!" my father hissed at me. He was shaking with rage. "Get out of my house! You are disowned! You are dead to me!" "I'm not going anywhere, Dad," I said. "Not yet, because I invited someone else to dinner." "Who?" he asked. "Who did you invite?" As if on cue, there was a heavy, authoritative knock at the front door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the silent house. It sounded like a gavel hitting a judge's bench. "Who is that?" my mother whispered, lifting her tear-stained face. Her mascara was running, making her look like a tragic clown. "The consequences," I said. The knocking continued. Knock, knock, knock. It was persistent, not polite. It was the kind of knock that demanded an answer, that ignored, "Please come back later." My Uncle Bob, who had been sitting in stunned silence, finally stood up. "I'll get it," he muttered. He looked relieved to have a reason to leave the table, to escape the suffocating air of betrayal. We all sat there frozen. My father was breathing heavily, his face a mask of red fury. My mother was clutching her napkin like a lifeline. Tiffany was staring at the foreclosure notice in her hand, reading the same line over and over again, as if trying to decode a foreign language. We heard the front door open. We heard low voices. "Is Robert Miller here?" a man's voice asked. It was deep and professional. Yes, he's in the dining room," Uncle Bob said. Footsteps clicked on the hardwood floor. Two men walked into the dining room. They were wearing dark suits. One held a briefcase, the other held a clipboard. They looked like undertakers for a funeral no one wanted to attend. "Robert Miller? Susan Miller?" the man with the briefcase asked. My father stood up slowly. He looked small. The bravado was gone, deflated like a punctured tire. "I am Robert," he said. "I am Agent Reynolds from the 1st National Bank Fraud Investigation Unit," the man said. He flashed a badge. "And this is Mr. Klein, a representative from the County Sheriff's Civil Division." A gasp went around the room. The word sheriff hung in the air, heavy and ominous. "We are here regarding the property at 142 Maple Drive," Agent Reynolds said. He didn't look at the guests. He was focused solely on my parents. "We received credible information that there was an intent to transfer the deed of this property today to a third party, specifically a family member, in order to defraud the bank and evade the active foreclosure proceedings." My father looked at me. His eyes were wide with shock. He hadn't expected this. He expected a fight, maybe some yelling. He didn't expect the authorities. You called them," he whispered. "I sent the email yesterday," I said calmly. "I attached the public records. I told them you were planning a fraudulent transfer." "You turned in your own father," Aunt Linda gasped. She looked horrified. "Morgan, that is a sin." "It is a crime to defraud a bank, Aunt Linda," I said, "and it is a crime to make my sister an accessory to fraud. If Tiffany had signed those papers, she could have been liable. She could have faced fines, maybe even jail time if they thought she was in on it. I looked at the agent. Did she sign anything? I asked him. We were monitoring the title office online, the agent said. Nothing has been filed yet. We are here to serve a cease and desist on any transfer and to serve the final eviction notice. He handed a thick envelope to my father. You have 30 days to vacate the premises, the agent said. The property is now under the control of the bank's asset management team. My mother let out a scream. It wasn't a word. It was just a raw sound of despair. She collapsed onto the floor, her fancy dress bunching up around her. No, no, this is my home. My babies grew up here, she sobbed. Get up, Susan, my father hissed. He was trying to maintain dignity, but it was too late. Don't make a scene. Make a scene? Brandon's mother stood up. She was a quiet woman, but she looked furious. You invited us here to celebrate a wedding gift, and it turns out you are being evicted? You were going to let my son move into a foreclosed house? We would have fixed it, my father yelled. I just needed time, if Morgan hadn't meddled. Stop blaming her, Brandon shouted. He slammed his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. Brandon walked over to Tiffany. He looked down at her. She was still sitting there, crying silently. Tiffany, he said. Did you know? I told you I didn't, she wept. I thought they were rich. I thought they loved us. You thought they loved you because they gave you things, Brandon said. He shook his head. And you loved them because they gave you things. You're all the same. It's all about the show. He took a ring box out of his pocket. He placed it on the table next to the blue folder. I can't do this, Brandon said. I can't marry into a family of liars. And Tiffany, you need to grow up. You need to stop playing princess. Brandon, please. Tiffany grabbed his arm. Don't leave me, I have nothing now. Exactly, Brandon said. He pulled his arm away. You have nothing, and I don't think you know who you are without this house and your parents' money. He walked out. He didn't look back. The sound of the front door closing was final. The guests started to move. It was a stampede. No one wanted to be associated with this anymore. We have to go, Aunt Linda said, grabbing her purse. Good luck, Robert, Uncle Bob muttered, not looking him in the eye. I can't believe this, Cousin Mark said, shaking his head as he walked past me. He looked at me with fear. You're brutal, Morgan. I'm honest, Mark, I said. Within 5 minutes, the house was empty of guests. The agents left after getting my father's signature. It was just the 4 of us. The nuclear family, the survivors of the blast. My mother was still on the floor. My father was pouring himself a glass of wine with a shaking hand. Tiffany was staring at the engagement ring Brandon had left behind, and I was sitting there, calm. I felt a strange sense of peace. The secret was out. The poison had been drained. My father downed the wine in one gulp. He turned to me. His face was a mixture of hatred and defeat. Are you happy? He asked. You destroyed this family. You humiliated us. I didn't destroy the family, Dad, I said. I just turned on the lights. You were the one who destroyed it with lies and debt. You built a castle on sand, just like Grandma Beatrice said. We did it for you, my mother wailed from the floor. We wanted you girls to have a good life. We wanted you to be proud of us. I would have been proud if you were honest, I said. I would have been proud if we lived in a small apartment and you paid your bills. I didn't need a mansion. I needed parents. I looked at Tiffany. She hadn't moved. She looked broken, like a doll whose strings had been cut. I stood up and walked over to her. Tiffany, I said softly. She flinched. Go away. You ruined my life. I saved your life, I corrected her. Brandon was right. You didn't know who you were. You were just the girl who gets things. Now you have a chance to be someone real. I have nowhere to go, she whispered. Brandon is gone. Mom and Dad are being kicked out. I can't afford an apartment. I have no savings. I spent it all on the wedding deposit. You have a job? I said. It's part-time, she cried, but it's a start. You can get more hours, I said. I can't live on that, she cried. I need help. She looked at our parents. They couldn't help her. They were drowning. She looked at me. Morgan, she said. Can I stay with you? It was the moment of truth, the moment Grandma Beatrice had warned me about. They will need you, and you will have to decide. I looked at her. She was my sister. I loved her. But if I let her move in, I would become the new crutch. I would become the new parent. She would never learn to stand on her own. No, I said. Tiffany's eyes widened. What? But you have a spare room. You have money. I do, I said. But if you come with me, you will just replace Dad with me. You will expect me to fix everything, and I won't do that to you. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a business card. It wasn't for a lawyer. It was for a women's shelter and job placement agency in the city that I volunteered at. I will help you, I said. I will help you rewrite your resume. I will help you find a cheap studio apartment. I will help you budget. But I will not carry you. I put the card in her hand. This is your chance, Tiffany, I said. Sink or swim. I think you can swim, but you have to jump in the water first. She looked at the card. She looked at me. For the first time, I saw a spark of anger in her eyes. Good. Anger was better than helplessness. Anger was fuel. I turned to my parents. I'm leaving now, I said. I won't be back. Don't bother, my father spat. You are no daughter of mine. That's fine, I said. Because you were never really a father to me. You were just a banker who made bad investments. I picked up my purse. I left the blue folder on the table, a souvenir of the truth. I walked out the front door. The rain had started. It was a cold, cleansing rain that washed away the dust and the lies. I walked to my car. I got in. I didn't look back at the house. I drove home. The next few months were chaotic. My parents were evicted. It was in the local paper. Prominent family loses home in foreclosure scandal. They moved to a different state to hide their shame. They don't call me. Tiffany struggled. She called me a few times, crying. She slept on a friend's couch for a while, but she didn't call me for money. She called for advice. How do I set up a utility bill? She asked once. How do I cook chicken without drying it out? She asked another time. She got a second job. She rented a tiny studio apartment. It wasn't a castle. It had a leaky faucet and a view of a brick wall, but she paid for it. Last week, she sent me a picture. It was a selfie of her standing in her tiny kitchen, holding a burnt lasagna. She was smiling. A real smile, not a pageant smile. It's terrible, the caption read. But I made it. I smiled. She was swimming. I am still in Chicago. I am still working. But the heaviness is gone. The shadow I lived in for 32 years has lifted. I realized that cutting them off wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of surgery. I cut out the rot so the healthy tissue could survive. I still miss the idea of a family. I miss the Thanksgiving I never had. But I have built my own family now. I have friends who show up. I have a life that is honest. And I have myself. And as Grandma Beatrice said, that is enough. So that's my story. I told you it wasn't a fairy tale. But in a way, maybe it is, because the dragon was defeated and the princess saved herself. I know how hard it is to be the one who speaks up. I know the guilt. I know the fear of being called ungrateful or difficult. But I want to tell you something important. If you are sitting at a table where you have to shrink yourself to fit in, stand up. If you are holding a secret that is eating you alive to protect people who wouldn't protect you, let it out. If you are the invisible child, make them see you. You are not a prop in someone else's play. You are the main character of your own life. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a choice between your family and your integrity? Have you ever been the one to break the cycle of lies? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. Your stories give me strength, just like I hope my story gave you some. And if you believe that truth is stronger than fear, please hit that subscribe button. Join our community. We are building a place for the truth tellers, the survivors, and the strong. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who needs to know that it's okay to walk away. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay honest. Tên phần nhỏ, tổng số từ, ngôi kể, phong cách, nhịp đọc, nhịp câu, giọng kể, tông, cảm xúc, thủ pháp. Freedom 12, Freedom New Beginnings, 1007, ngôi thứ nhất Morning, tổng kết, chiêm nghiệm, phong cách truyền cảm hứng, chậm rãi, nhẹ nhàng, sâu lắng. Câu văn giàu cảm xúc, mang tính triết lý và ẩn dụ. Act of surgery, sink or swim. Bình yên, mạnh mẽ, khích lệ. Hy vọng, tự do, sự chữa lành sau cơn bão. Call to action. Kêu gọi hành động chia sẻ câu chuyện. Metaphor. Cleansing rain. Surgery. Character arc completion. Sự trưởng thành của Tiffany và sự giải thoát của Morgan. Theme statement thông điệp cốt lõi về sự thật và lòng dũng cảm.